In this video we will take a look at different Abrams tank variants and how to differentiate them. Keep in mind that not all of them can be visually distinguished from one another, thus I will only talk about variants that can be differentiated. In order to differentiate the Abrams tank variants, we must first take a look at the original M1 Abrams tank. M1 was armed with 105mm gun, which was the leftover from the M60 tank. This is one very noticeable thing about it. But the variant that came after it, the M1 IP or IP M1, where IP stands for improved, also had the same gun. The difference between the two being that the IP M1 had the turret armor thickened, or better said, extended. That is why the only external difference between the two is the fact that the turret armor appears thicker on the improved variant. But IP M1 was short-lived, since very soon the 120mm gun started to be mounted, and the tank was renamed to M1A1. You can easily spot the difference between the 120 and 105mm guns, especially by looking at the bore evacuator. Another external changes to M1A1 included the storage addition to the back of the turret and the CITV mount being added during the production run, but no M1A1 tank ever received one. Keep in mind that you can still see the M1A1 tanks without it. US realized that even the thicker turret armor isn't going to be enough, so they started adding depleted uranium to the turret armor composition. The tanks received the name M1A1HA, where HA stands for heavy armor, to indicate the presence of depleted uranium in the armor. There is absolutely no visual difference between those two tanks. The only way to differentiate them is to look at their serial number at the side of the turret. If the serial number ends with the letter U, that means it has depleted uranium in the turret armor. But M1A1 development did not stop there. Next in the line is M1A1 AIM tank, where AIM stands for Abrams Integrated Management. This tank saw a lot of upgrades to electronics, but not much externally. The only way to differentiate M1A1 AIM from older variants is by the special antenna added near the main gun sight, which serves for Blue Force tracking, where each M1A1 AIM tank can see the location of the friendly AIM tank. And the last M1A1 tank is the M1A1 SA, or Situational Awareness. This is an upgrade to existing M1A1 AIM tanks and again is very hard to differentiate. The only difference between SA and AIM is the presence of the stabilized commander's weapon station. Up until that point it had absolutely no stabilization, and SA variant fixed the issue. If you look closely you can see that the mount for the 50 caliber machine gun is visually different from the simple one that was used up to that point. Now that we are done with M1A1 tanks, it's time for M1A2. M1A2 appeared after M1A1HA, and unlike any M1A1 tank, it received the Commander's Independent Thermal Viewer, or CITV. It is the simplest way to recognize it, but you can also take a look at the Commander's cupola to see that the Commander now has access to larger vision blocks, which provide him with better view when buttoned up. Keep in mind that you can come across M1A1 tanks with ANVLQ soft kill active protection system installed at the place where M1A2's CITV is. From the distance they may appear similar, but upon a closer inspection you can really notice the difference. After a while M1A2 SEP, or System Enhanced Package, appeared. A lot of things were changed with this variant, from upgraded electronics to the upgraded armor, but little to no external difference. The only difference you can come across between the two is the fact that M1A2 SEP is missing an auxiliary power unit, which was previously stored at the back of the turret. It got replaced with the thermal management unit because it was planned to install an under armor APU on M1A2 SEP tanks, but it never happened, and SEP tanks went around with no APU whatsoever. After SEP came the SEP V2, which also brought a bunch of upgrades. This variant has the Kraus, or Common Remotely Operated Weapon Station, installed as standard. There is another tricky difference, which is another storage rack being added on top of the existing one at the rear of the turret. And last but not the least is M1A2 SEP V3, or now known as M1A2C. M1A2C brings a lot of stuff to the table. First thing is the improved armor, From certain angles, the difference between the turret armor of SEP V2 and V3 can be noticed, especially the fact that the brackets that hold the composition internally are on completely different places. Serial number now no longer includes the letter U, but the letter M. M1A2C received the long-promised internal or under armor APU, and thus, now on the rear, it has an exhaust port for an APU, which is another way to tell it apart. But now, brace yourselves for the tricky part. M1A2C brought to the table the Krauss LP, where LP stands for a low profile. It is visually smaller than the Krauss used in SEP V2. But ever since Krauss LP got showcased, SEP V2 tanks also started having their Krauss replaced with Krauss LP, which brought a lot of confusion. I don't know how everyone heard about the trophy hard kill APS being installed on Abrams tanks, but so far they are mostly being placed on the active service tanks, and M1A2C has not yet entered active service. This picture from the military exercise in Romania also brought up a lot of confusion, where people thought that the M1A2C actually entered service since it has Krauss LP and trophy system, which was promised for the new tank. But the truth is, that is SEP V2 tank that is already in service. It just has trophy APS installed and Krauss replaced with Krauss LP. And that is it. Thanks for watching. If you think I skipped some variant, I mean the one you can actually tell apart, please let me know in the comments. If you like my content, please consider supporting me on Patreon, and if you have some questions or just want to chat, join my Discord channel. Both links are in the description, and I will see you all in the next video. Have a nice day.